Hello friends, Rifle Cherry here. I'm going to be making the very first cut I've ever made with this kind of a cheap Chinese version of the Alaskan sawmill. I have to say is that the aluminum cast parts of it seem to be okay. The steel parts of it, I believe the old-fashioned, chainsaw mill from the Alaskan chainsaw mill was all steel parts. It was much thicker gauge. I know that a friend of mine had one of these and he broke one part, and you essentially have to buy an entirely new assembly because you can't just buy that one part. Anyway, we're going to give this a go. First cut I've ever made with this system. I'm using the MS391, a still MS391. It has a 20-inch bar on it. It's maybe a little bit small for the purpose that I'm doing this. This is at its widest point, this log is 15 inches wide. I've got about 18 inches to play with, so I should be able to do this. I don't even have the dogs taken off the chainsaw. Pretty much going to have my face right in the exhaust area here, so I've got the 3M, semi-covered face mask filter system with the vapor filters on it. I'm not looking to breathe too much of that stuff in if I can help it. So let's flash her up and give her a go. I've got the log stabilized on both sides. This board is as bubble as I can get it. Let's do this. with a 20-inch bar, cross-cut, a ripping blade on there. It's basically brand new. Lots of meat on those teeth there, and which is weird because I'm not used to seeing new chains. Now I wanted these boards, which will be beams, to be just over 4 inches. 4 1/8 is what I was targeting. 4 1/8. 4 1/8. 4 1/8. 4 1/8. Okay, so that's what I wanted. So that's a success. These are heavy. So is it worthwhile? Is this thing worthwhile? So it's basically $100 delivered to you through Amazon. The directions are, you might as well just take them and throw them in the trash. When it comes to the assembly, I've made some modifications to what I've done here and how I've got it configured, but ultimately it's just what made sense. As you can see, this is the center of the tree. This is where the rings start and they radiate out. So this is the best cut for a beam. It's going to be the most stable. It's going to be the beam. It's going to warp the least, and it's going to be a good piece of wood. I got to square the ends. I'll snap a line and do that with my MS-170. There is a jig where it just slides on top here, and you're guaranteed a 90-degree angle with your chainsaw when you're making those cuts. You know what, for $100, if you have access to your own trees and you know how to fall trees and you know how to do it safely and not kill yourself, because it's running chainsaw is inherently dangerous, and so you need to know what you're doing. If you're one of those kinds of people and you're a little bit handy that way, then yeah, I say go ahead, get yourself one. Sure, I mean, if something breaks on it, you can't get the parts for it, you have to order an entirely new kit. You can't just break an arm and then buy that arm and put it back on. You have to buy an entirely new assembly. But what it does is it gives you extra parts for the next time you have something blow out on you. It may be a good idea to actually purchase two of them, expecting that something may one day go tits up and you need to, you know, keep yourself in action, as it were. Don't let something like that stop you. So what I will say is that I think that the price of wood these days is insane. It didn't used to be that way, but ever since COVID, prices went up and never really came back down. I mean, $100 won't buy you much in the way of wood anymore. It just won't. $100 wood is depressing to look at once you throw it in the back of your pickup truck. So it's essentially paid for itself already, just cutting these custom beams. And I mean, two logs, and it's already paid for itself easily. What else can I say? The saw that you use it in, I think this can take up to a 30-inch or maybe a 36-inch bar. This is the chainsaw that I'm using, is the MS391. I never intended to use it for this purpose. This chainsaw was purchased in order to buck decks of logs into firewood, just to cut them into firewood rounds. It was never intended for me to be out here doing this. It is underpowered for what I'm asking it to do. However, it is also cutting through seasoned, dry western hemlock, which is a very hard softwood. It's very hard. It's second only to Douglas fir and western larch, which is harder. But these are, the first log was 16-inch. This one here was a 14-inch log. And you just go slow. You don't need to push the saw hard. Once it gets up to speed and the chain is nice and sharp, I'm making good progress. I'm quite pleased with the progress I'm getting with the MS391. It doesn't have the bottom end torque that I think you need to be able to push, but I don't think you really need to push. First of all, because this chassis is not really that strong. It has got a lot of aluminum components on it, so you don't want to push that too hard. And secondly, it's the RPMs are pretty good when I'm running this. I don't have it totally wound up when it's cutting, so I think it's a kind of a compromise to be able to do this, but you probably should go out and get yourself a more torquey chainsaw if you intend to go out and do this. That was not the purpose of the acquisition of that chainsaw. Anyhow, I think the last thing I want to say is when it comes to cutting wedges, I cut these on the table saw at home. You want them to be about this size, I figure, if you're going to be cutting logs. These are about 9 inches long, so 8 to 9 inches, and about a half inch at the wide end. Just so you've got some room, you could just pack it in with the palm of your hand, or maybe a small hammer or an axe. You can just tap it in. These little guys, which I made, you have to double up to get them to work. They're a pain in the ass. So I'm going to cut a bunch more wedges on a table saw, and don't use Fowler's wedges, because those are intended to be slippery, and the vibration of the saw on the wood, they just fall out. Don't use plastic falling wedges. Use wood, because they'll stick. I think that's about it. It gets a thumbs up from me. It's a little bit finicky about when it comes to making your adjustments. I think this would be, if it was like a static sled where you're just going to cut the same depth over and over and over and over and over again, and you're not going to really be monkeying around with it and trying to adjust it and so on. It's really finicky to adjust and reset or retime where you want it to be for depth, for cutting depth. It takes a long time. It's really, really finicky to make changes. So, but if you're going to be running this static and not making any adjustments back and forth, up and down, don't worry about it. It's good for that. I don't think it's particularly strong. This is like really thin gauged steel. So I mean, I've already torqued on that bolt there, because it just doesn't have much in the way of strength built into it. And like I said previously, if one part goes, you pretty much got to buy a new one. $97 Canadian. Now I know that a high quality one, you kind of start getting into it, at least here in Canada, I think around the $700 to $800 range for a quality one that is easier to make adjustments or manipulations to. And
But with this, I don't want to have to friggin' push on it too much, you know, in slippery conditions. You don't want to slip. And it is, when it was raining, and it's died down just a little bit here, but it was raining. Anyway, so this is Western Hemlock, and I think these are nice boards. These are 1 inch. I didn't bring my tape measure. It's pretty close to 1 inch all the way across, or at least it's fairly, there's some inconsistencies, like I'm pretty new at this. I don't like revving up the RPMs on the saw because you can see the variation in the curve because of the chainsaw blade, but I think this cleans up pretty good, this Western Hemlock. That's it, folks. Brett Future signing out. Hope you're all doing well. Cheers, and as always, Maple Leaf up.